WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, often tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. Today I have Teeling, 13-year-old single grain finished in Bordeaux red wine casks. Ooh, 50%. Now, I did my 2022 top 10 Irish whiskeys, and quite a few people asked, Jason, where's the Teeling, 13-year-old? And I had to reply, didn't try it. I bought it in 2022. This actually came out in September of 2021 in Ireland. And I had it on my shelf, and then there were other bottles, and then other bottles, and then I traveled a lot, and there were other bottles and other things to do, and then the year was over, and I was like, whoops, forgot. So now we're going to try this whiskey here. Whiskybase number 190995. It is a triple distilled single grain. I sometimes have my problem with the idea of triple distillation in a column still, but hey, depends on how you set up the column stills. Middleton says it's triple distilled. Cooley said it was triple distilled. So, by the way, where does this come from? Well, it comes from Cooley. All right, so 50%. And over here in Germany, I'm going to be paying around about somewhere, I'm going to say about 70, what was it, 77, 78, 79 euros for this bottle. Now, in Ireland, it's 85 euros. That has to do with taxes, VAT, it has to do with excise taxes, much, much higher per liter of alcohol, and so on and so on and so on. Just a different thing, a different way of looking at that. Now, this had 9 years in ex-Bourbon and good 4 years in Bordeaux red wine cask as a finish. 4 years is a fairly long time. What am I going to compare it to? I'm going to compare it to something from Clonakilty. Now, this is a Bordeaux cask finish. This is a single grain Irish whiskey. This is one of 1,000 bottles. This is batch number 1. And I only have 43.6% ABV. This is Whiskybase number 140375. I visited the distillery this year, Clonakilty. First, we went to the fields of barley right on the coast. Then we went up to the warehouse, beautiful, beautiful place where the magic happens with wood maturation. And then we went to the distillery that used to be a bank in the middle of Clonakilty and visited the production there. Also, where they only make single pot still there, which I think is really fascinating. And how long the finish was here, it's not mentioned. How long was the finish here? We know County Cork. Here it was, got little particles in here. Interesting. And here, look at the difference in the colors here. Red, still a little bit light. Now, on the nose, I read someplace 95% corn, 5% malted barley is the mash bill they used for their single grain at Cooley back then. Here we have a name, Jack Teeling. I'm not really sure how involved he was in the making of this whiskey. I personally think it was more of the man behind everything. That's going to be here, Alex. So Alex TWCo, he's the master distiller and responsible for very, very many blendings. Jack Teeling is the son from John Teeling. John Teeling started Cooley. And yeah, Jack worked at Cooley. Alex TWCo worked at Cooley as well. They were able to take a big chunk of the stock out of Cooley into the Teeling family name, and they started the Teeling Distillery in Dublin with this. Now, at the Teeling Distillery in Dublin, you will never have a single grain. Why not? Because they have 3 pot stills. You need to have a column still and unmalted products like corn or wheat to go in there and have actually a grain whiskey. Wow. Walsh had his distillery called Royal Oak. Took me a while to get to Royal Oak. Royal Oak, they have column stills and they have pot stills. Very interesting. Cooley has column stills and pot stills. Great Northern have column stills and pot stills. Middleton, of course, have the column stills and the pot stills. West Cork have the column stills and the pot stills. I think it was actually Jack Teeling himself said 80% of all whiskey that leaves Ireland is made on a pot still. Sorry, whoops. 80%. I need to redo that again. 80% of all whiskey that leaves Ireland is made on a column still. Yeah, now we have it. Because most of the Jameson mix of pot and single malt and grain is going to be 80-20. Which I think is very, very interesting. So this is 100% single grain. Single grain, not on a pot still, not malted barley. In this case, 95% corn, maize, for those of us that don't speak Americanese, and 5% malted barley. All right, on the nose. Okay, I get that red wine moment. I get a tiny whiff of sulfur. Not too much that it really bothers me. I'm thinking this is more of a sour red moment. Think cranberries. Think currants. Think even red grapes that are a little bit bitter red grapes. This is chalkier. There's more mineral moments going on here, and the wood is a tiny little bit more evident. What do I mean? Yeah. I don't know where they got their single grain from, to be honest. Is it Great Northern? Is it West Cork? Is it Cooley? I could ask some people if I wanted to. Don't want to at the moment, but because that's not going to be the focus of the distillery in the beginning. I truly love non-chilled filtered. Also here it says on the label, non-chilled filtered. What it does not say on the label is natural color, which is a shame. I think that is natural color, by the way. And the 50% is really good. Now, am I willing to pay 77, 79 euros for this nose? No. As I say, that sulfur moment comes up a little bit more, but we have a dark, a little bit of a sour fruit moment. Going to see if I can find any of the official tasting notes. So the official tasting notes from the website here from Teeling.com, rosewater, not something I normally have in my whiskeys, ripe cherries, cinnamon, and red fruits. Don't get the cinnamon, get the sulfur. All right, cheers. Mm-hmm. What surprised me, pleasantly surprised me, is the viscosity of this whiskey. There is a little bit of popcorn moment going on in there. 95% corn. We don't say pop maize now, do we? It's popcorn. Just trying to show my Americanisms here are more the right way of saying something. But the fruitiness is absolutely in perfect harmony with this whiskey. Well done. That is good. That is a C plus B minus good. And that's for a single grain. Now, my tiny little problem is I can still buy single barrel cask strength Teeling Irish whiskey for 80 euros. On auction sites, it could be sherry, it could be port, it could be other Bordeaux red wine, and so on. And it's single malt, cask strength, Cooley juice, 80 euros. Beautiful stuff. And if I compare the two, I have 80 euros. What am I going to go buy? Am I going to go buy another bottle of this, which is good? Or am I going to go on an auction site and go buy an old bottle of the Teeling? I would go buy the old bottle of the Teeling for 80 euros. That's why the price is, I think, in my personal opinion, a bit too high. 85 euros in Ireland, 77, 79 euros over here in Germany. I'm just not really willing to pay that amount of money for that flavor moment. I'm going to give this a C, maybe a C minus for the value for money. This is something that if you're a big fan of Teeling, go buy it. Who knows if we'll see in 5 years from now another 13-year-old or 15-year-old or 11-year-old product from Teeling come out with single grain. That should be the realm of, sorry to say this, Great Northern. Great Northern Distillery, they make grain. They belong to the papa, the daddy, the John Teeling. There's a video online here where I sit together with him and the, unfortunately, unexpectedly died, passed away, let's say there, from Brian Watts. He was a great guy, and I thoroughly enjoyed the time there that he spent with me afterwards, walking around the distillery, explaining everything, helping me to understand that process that was going on there at that old brewery that turned into a distillery. It's amazing what Great Northern is doing there and what they will be doing in the future. And so the question is, Teeling, you pride yourself on your pot still whiskey from Dublin, and yet this is a product from Dundalk, 45 minutes north of Dublin, roundabout, depends on traffic, but why not? All right, so they do have the distribution network worldwide, and Great Northern does not want to have a brand. They want to be actually a contract distiller, and that's fine. I added water in my German video. It actually stood up to the water. Now that I'm not partial to the nose. As I said, that little bit of sulfur, that whiff of sulfur, a little bit of matchsticks, I get always there when I smell this, is just not for me. On the other hand, this is a bottle no longer existent actually in the world market. So, nope, I was just looking to see if anything said how many bottles there were. This was Whiskybase 140375, by the way. And it was bottled 2019, so 4 years ago now, 3 basically. We're still in January here, at least when I'm filming this. Tiny bit sweeter. Ooh, nice. And then a little bit of not bad wood, but not the best wood at the end. This is very, very well done. I can almost push it up to the C minus, sorry, the B minus instead of the C plus plus. This is definitely a C whiskey. Now, basically you have, I'm going to say, at least in Scotland, you have 2 types of whiskey. You have malt whiskey and you have grain whiskey. And then a blend of the 2 would be blended Scotch whiskey. And then no grain would be single malt, just grain is single grain. We have blended grain, we have blended malts. That's it. Now in Ireland, you have 3 categories of whiskey. You have grain, you have single malt, and you have single pot still. There's pot still whiskeys. You can have blended pot still as well. What you have with a pot still is you have malted and unmalted barley in there. At least 30 of each. At least 30% unmalted, at least 30% malted. And that is going to change a little bit, but that doesn't matter. All right, so you have the main components that we have in Irish whiskey is an Irish whiskey, which would be some single malt, let's say 20%, and 80% single grain. That's a normal, typical mix for Jameson. Now, that is what's sold around the world. And that's what people know. My question for me and for the industry is, do we, the consumer, really care about single grain in Ireland? I know you're producing a lot of it. I know you can make some good stuff. But is this the category in Irish whiskey that we really want to, I'm going to use the word celebrate? We should be celebrating the unique category of pot still whiskey. I think Irish whiskey should be working in a very, very strong and fast method to protect pot still whiskey as an original Irish product that can only be made in Ireland. I would love for that to come true. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's not. And so the question is, how big is the niche market of grain or single grain whiskeys in Ireland? I named just some of the distilleries, and even the newer distilleries that are being built down at the Ring of Kerry and so on have their column stills already installed, and they're going to be making millions and millions and millions of liters of grain whiskey to make Irish whiskey, blended Irish whiskey. And that's just fine. But this niche product, question of the day: what Irish single grain whiskey have you had and you loved? I remember I used to have from Cooley, it was an 8-year-old, I think it was a green ore. Interesting product. We've had some other from Malaika Spitze over here, from Black Rocks and Irish single grain whiskey. Teeling, we have a single grain whiskey. There's not that much single grain whiskey out there, Clonakilty, but there are a few. And which ones have you tried and you liked? Now, the last sip of the day. If you're hyper sensitive to sulfur, stay away from it. If you're sulfur blind, you're going to enjoy it. I love the viscosity. I love the flavor. As I said, the B minus kind of goes down to the C plus sometimes when the sulfur comes through. There is a great red berry moment, currant, cranberry, a little bit of that sour grape moment. If you like it, bam, that's what you want to have. Thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing. See you soon. Whiskey Jason here. About every other day at the moment, I'm publishing content, and I hope that you will enjoy a lot of the Irish whiskeys that I'm going to do in the next couple of days. See you soon. Bye-bye.